Michael Jordan sees a girl crying after being cut from the team. Before we get into the story, comment below where in the world you are watching from today, and if you like this story, don't forget to subscribe. Michael Jordan's journey to becoming the greatest basketball player of all time didn't begin on a polished NBA court, but rather on the worn-down courts of Wilmington, North Carolina. It was here, in a small-town gym, where a young Michael first encountered the game that would change his life forever. Born in 1963, Michael was raised in a family that valued hard work, discipline, and a deep sense of family loyalty. His father, James, was strict but loving, and his mother, Dolores, was the unwavering support system behind him. Their values, combined with Michael's own unrelenting will to succeed, set the stage for a career that would leave an indelible mark on the sport. But the road to greatness was far from easy. Like many athletes, Jordan faced rejection early in his life, particularly in high school. In his sophomore year, he tried out for the varsity basketball team at Laney High School, only to be cut by the coach. This was a humbling moment for Jordan, a young man who was already dreaming of basketball greatness. But instead of succumbing to disappointment, Jordan used the rejection as fuel. He worked harder than ever, determined to prove everyone wrong. He spent hours on the court, refining his jump shot, his footwork, and his overall game. That determination paid off, and by the next season, Jordan was not just on the team, he was the star player. Jordan's high school years were marked by fierce determination. As a junior, he led Laney High to a state championship, and his performances caught the attention of college scouts across the country. But even as he excelled on the court, Jordan had a sense of humility and a drive for self-improvement that kept him grounded. He wasn't satisfied with being good, he wanted to be the best. This mindset, combined with his incredible work ethic, would carry him through the years to come. It wasn't long before Jordan's talents caught the eye of the University of North Carolina, one of the premier basketball programs in the nation. In 1981, he committed to UNC, joining a team that included future NBA stars like James Worthy and Sam Perkins. Jordan's college years were a critical turning point in his development as a player. Under the guidance of legendary coach Dean Smith, Jordan was able to refine his game even further, learning not just about basketball, but about leadership and the importance of teamwork. Despite being a standout player, Jordan wasn't immune to the challenges that came with being a young athlete on a team filled with established stars. But his competitiveness and natural ability to rise to the occasion were undeniable. His freshman year culminated in a game-winning shot in the 1982 NCAA championship game against Georgetown, a moment that would become one of the most iconic in college basketball history. The shot was a harbinger of things to come, signaling that Jordan was capable of handling the most pressure-filled moments with grace and precision. But while Jordan's college career was filled with success, it was far from smooth sailing. He constantly worked to elevate his game, driven by a desire to not just be good, but to be the best. This drive was something that was ingrained in him from a young age, shaped by his father's lessons about hard work and perseverance. Even as Jordan's star continued to rise, he never took his success for granted. Every victory, every accomplishment was just another step in his journey toward greatness. As Jordan's time at UNC drew to a close, the inevitable question arose, was he ready for the NBA? While many thought he had the potential to be a star in the league, the question of whether he could adapt to the professional game lingered. The NBA was a different world, faster, stronger, and more competitive than anything Jordan had faced in college. But his confidence and commitment to improvement made it clear that Jordan wasn't just playing for today, he was playing for the future. In 1984, Jordan declared for the NBA draft, a moment that would alter the course of history. The Chicago Bulls, who had been languishing in mediocrity for years, selected him with the third overall pick. Jordan's arrival in Chicago was a moment of excitement for the franchise and the city. The Bulls had struggled to make a serious impact in the NBA, but they were hoping that Jordan's arrival would change all that. Jordan's rookie season was a turning point for both him and the Bulls. Right away, it was clear that Jordan was unlike any player the NBA had ever seen. His scoring ability was unmatched, and his natural athleticism allowed him to do things on the court that others simply couldn't. Despite being on a team that was far from championship contention, Jordan quickly made his mark. He averaged over 28 points per game in his rookie season, won the Rookie of the Year award, and became the focal point of the Bulls' offense. However, while Jordan's individual performance was extraordinary, the Bulls as a team were still a long way from competing at the highest level. The franchise had talent, but it lacked the cohesion and leadership needed to contend for championships. Jordan knew this, and he was determined to do whatever it took to improve not just his own game, but the team's overall performance. But even with his impressive individual statistics, the first few years of Jordan's career were filled with frustration. The Bulls, though improved, were still not making any serious playoff runs. The lack of support around him was a significant challenge, but Jordan wasn't discouraged. He was motivated by his desire to win, not just for himself, but for the team. He knew that in order to achieve greatness, he would have to push himself even harder. As the 1985-86 season progressed, Jordan's skills continued to evolve. He was no longer just a prolific scorer, he was becoming a complete player. His defense was improving, his passing became more precise, and his basketball IQ was growing. Even in the midst of the Bulls' struggles, Jordan's individual brilliance shone through. He finished the season with a scoring average of 37.1 points per game, one of the highest in NBA history. Despite the team's lack of success, Jordan's efforts were beginning to catch the attention of the league and its fans. The 1986-87 season was another year of individual success for Jordan, but the team continued to face challenges. It wasn't enough to just have one star player. It was clear that the Bulls needed more pieces to truly compete for a championship. But even as Jordan faced obstacles on the court, he never wavered in his commitment to excellence. He knew that greatness wasn't achieved overnight, it was a process. He continued to refine his game, believing that with time, the right team would come together. Jordan's journey, which began on the basketball courts of Wilmington, North Carolina, had already shown glimpses of the greatness that was to come. But it was clear that the road ahead would be long and filled with challenges. He had proven that he was a force to be reckoned with, but he still had to overcome the obstacles that stood between him and the ultimate prize, an NBA championship. His commitment to improvement, his competitive drive, and his refusal to settle for anything less than the best would carry him through the years to come, ultimately leading him to the greatest heights of his career. In the meantime, the seeds of greatness had been planted. Michael Jordan had already proven that he was special, but it was the journey ahead that would define his legacy and cement his place as one of the greatest players to ever play the game. It was a chilly afternoon in the high school gym at Laney High School in Wilmington, North Carolina. The basketball court was quiet after the usual din of sneakers on the hardwood and the sharp whistle of the coach's commands. A group of hopefuls stood by the locker room, waiting anxiously for the final list of players who would make the cut. Among them was a young girl who had poured her heart and soul into making the team. Her palms were sweaty, her heart pounding as the minutes ticked by. When the coach finally came out and read the names of those who had made the team, her name wasn't on the list. The crushing disappointment hit her like a ton of bricks, and soon, her tears began to flow. She sat down in the corner of the gym, hidden from the others, her face buried in her hands as the weight of rejection sank in. She had done everything right. She had worked hard at every practice, hustled during drills, and made every attempt to be as good as the boys on the court. But now, that hard work seemed to have been in vain. Why had she been cut? What was it about her that didn't measure up? In the midst of her tears, Michael Jordan, a rising star already making waves on the basketball scene, happened to be in the gym, observing some of the younger players. Jordan was in his senior year of high school at the time, and even though he was already a standout, his journey had been defined by moments of disappointment and self-doubt, and he could relate to what this girl was feeling. Seeing the girl's distress and recognizing the all-too-familiar feeling of rejection, he was moved. Jordan's attention wasn't focused on the tryouts or the coaches, it was on the girl in the corner. His eyes locked onto her, and he walked toward her, his shoes tapping lightly against the gym floor. He had always been the one to push through adversity, the one to silence the doubters, and he saw that same fire in her, even if she didn't realize it yet. He knew this moment could be pivotal in her own journey, just as his own defining moments had been for him. "Hey," Jordan said gently, his voice cutting through her tears. She looked up at him, recognizing the face of the future NBA star. Her eyes were red and swollen, but his presence seemed to calm her. "Why are you crying?" I didn't make the team," she whispered, her voice breaking as she spoke. "I worked so hard, and it didn't matter. I thought I was good enough, but I guess I'm not." Jordan knelt down beside her, sitting on the gym floor as if nothing else mattered but the moment at hand. His experience of being overlooked, of not making the varsity team during his sophomore year, came rushing back. He understood the pain of rejection better than anyone. "Look," he said, his tone firm yet compassionate, "when I was your age, I was cut from my high school varsity team too. I worked harder after that, spent extra hours on the court, and made sure that nobody would ever say I wasn't good enough again." The girl looked at him, unsure whether to believe him. It was hard to imagine someone like Michael Jordan ever facing rejection. After all, he had become the best basketball player in the world. But Jordan didn't just stop there. He knew that words alone wouldn't change her mindset, action would. Jordan stood up, motioning toward the coach who had made the cuts. "I'm going to talk to him," he said. "I think you deserve another chance." Without waiting for a response, he walked over to the coach, his presence commanding attention. The coach, a bit taken aback by Jordan's boldness, raised an eyebrow as Jordan pulled him aside. "Why was she cut?" Jordan asked, his voice steady but filled with the kind of authority he had cultivated over the years. "I watched her out there, and I think she has what it takes. She deserves another shot." The coach hesitated, unsure how to respond to Jordan's impromptu intervention. "She's just not quite there yet." "Not enough skills, not enough experience," the coach replied, though he didn't sound entirely convinced by his own reasoning. Jordan, never one to back down from a challenge, pressed on. "That's not what I saw. You don't always pick players based on experience alone. You pick the ones with the heart, the ones who show up day in and day out, no matter what. I've been there. If you give her another chance, she'll show you what she's got." The coach was taken aback by Jordan's passion, but there was something in his voice, something that commanded respect. Jordan's reputation as a relentless competitor had preceded him, and the coach could sense the sincerity in his plea. After a moment of contemplation, he relented. "Fine. I'll give her another chance. But she better prove she belongs." Jordan gave a small nod, satisfied with the coach's response. As he returned to the girl, his words were simple but filled with conviction. "You've got another shot. Don't waste it." Her face lit up as she wiped away the tears, grateful for the unexpected turn of events. Jordan had not only given her another chance to prove herself but had also shown her the value of persistence and determination. The next practice was different. The girl came out with a fire in her eyes, ready to show her coach, her teammates, and herself that she belonged. The intensity in her game shifted. Her dribbling was sharper, her movements more decisive, and her focus unshakable. She wasn't just playing for the team anymore, she was playing for herself, driven by the second chance that Jordan had given her. For Jordan, this moment was about more than just helping someone else. It was about leadership, something he had always prided himself on. Jordan understood that being great wasn't just about talent, it was about lifting others up, believing in them even when they couldn't believe in themselves. The girl's fight to prove herself was a reflection of Jordan's own journey, the one where rejection didn't define him, but rather pushed him to work harder, be better, and never give up. The following weeks saw the girl improve dramatically. She made the team, earned her place, and contributed to the squad's success. She wasn't the star of the team, but her journey from the depths of rejection to the heights of accomplishment was a testament to the power of resilience. And every time she stepped onto the court, she remembered the day when Michael Jordan gave her that second chance. For Jordan, the experience was a reminder of the responsibility that came with greatness. He didn't just have the power to inspire through his play, he had the ability to change someone's life. This moment in the gym wasn't a grand gesture or a headline-making story, it was a small but powerful moment that spoke volumes about the kind of leader he was. It showed that sometimes, all it takes to change someone's life is the belief that they can be more than what they think they are. As Jordan left the gym that day, he knew he had done more than help a young girl get a second chance. He had reminded himself of what it meant to be a true leader. And that, more than anything else, was what would define his legacy for years to come. By the time Michael Jordan left high school, it was clear that he was destined for greatness. After being cut from the varsity team his sophomore year, he had transformed that failure into a relentless drive to prove his worth. With hours of practice, determination, and sheer willpower, he had become one of the top players in the state of North Carolina. Yet, as he stood at the crossroads of his career, the question remained, would he continue to rise, or would the pressure of greatness crush him? The answer would come when Jordan arrived at the University of North Carolina in 1981. Jordan's time at UNC would prove to be the defining chapter that set him apart as more than just a promising athlete. It was where he learned to hone his skills, sharpen his mind, and embrace the philosophy of teamwork. Under the guidance of legendary coach Dean Smith, Jordan's raw talent was transformed into a complete, refined player who had the tools to succeed at the highest level. Despite being surrounded by talented teammates like James Worthy and Sam Perkins, Jordan quickly became the focus of attention for the UNC program. He wasn't just a star player, he was a workhorse. Every day, he put in hours on the court, perfecting his jump shot, working on his defense, and understanding the nuances of the game. His commitment to improving every aspect of his game set him apart from his peers. While many players relied on natural talent alone, Jordan's work ethic ensured he would leave a lasting mark on every facet of the sport. But his journey at UNC wasn't without its challenges. As a freshman, Jordan wasn't guaranteed the role of star player. Coach Smith valued a well-rounded team, and there was competition for the spotlight. Even in a program as prestigious as UNC, Jordan had to fight for every minute on the court. That determination was something he would carry with him throughout his entire career. He was a fierce competitor who would not allow anyone to take his place, no matter how talented they were. This competitive nature was a vital part of his growth, pushing him to constantly strive for more and to not settle for mediocrity. It was during his freshman year that Jordan would experience his first taste of success. In the 1982 NCAA championship game against Georgetown, with less than 20 seconds left and the score tied, Jordan received the ball and calmly hit a game-winning shot, clinching the championship for UNC. The moment was not only a breakthrough for Jordan personally, but also a statement to the basketball world. Even as a freshman, he had the poise to handle high-pressure situations. That moment, often referred to as the shot, would be the first of many where Jordan's ability to rise to the occasion would define his career. Even with his success at UNC, Jordan wasn't satisfied. He wasn't interested in merely being a good player, he wanted to be the best. He worked tirelessly, day in and day out, to elevate his game to new levels. He wasn't concerned with accolades or awards, he was concerned with winning. This mindset would become a hallmark of his career. It was this hunger to be the best that would carry him from college basketball's elite to the NBA, where a new set of challenges awaited him. The 1984 NBA draft was a turning point in Jordan's life. After an illustrious college career, Jordan declared for the draft, and the Chicago Bulls selected him with the third overall pick. The Bulls, long stuck in the doldrums of mediocrity, were hoping Jordan would be the player to elevate them to greatness. But Jordan's arrival was met with skepticism from many. The NBA was a different world from college basketball, and Jordan would have to prove himself once again. This would be the first test of many, where Jordan's mental toughness, competitive drive, and relentless work ethic would be put to the ultimate test. Jordan's rookie season in 1984 was an immediate shock to the NBA. In his very first game, he scored 16 points and grabbed 6 rebounds, showing glimpses of the talent that had made him a star in college. Throughout the season, Jordan's numbers kept climbing. By the end of his rookie year, he was averaging 28.2 points per game and winning the Rookie of the Year award. But even with these impressive individual numbers, the Bulls were struggling as a team. They finished with a losing record and were far from being contenders. Despite the team's lack of success, Jordan's individual play was becoming the talk of the league. His combination of athleticism, basketball IQ, and work ethic was rare for someone so young. Jordan was becoming known not just for his scoring, but for his ability to make everyone around him better. His leadership qualities were starting to take shape, even in the midst of a team that wasn't performing at its best. He was driven, and his focus was on one goal: winning championships. But to win championships, Jordan knew he needed help. He couldn't do it alone. The Bulls had a few talented players, but they lacked the depth and cohesion necessary to compete at the highest level. Jordan's frustration began to grow. He had already proven he could be a dominant individual force, but he wanted more. He wanted to win. He knew he needed a better team around him, and so began his search for the perfect supporting cast. This drive for a championship-winning team would be one of the driving forces behind his evolution as a leader. The following season saw the Bulls build a stronger team. Through the draft and trades, the Bulls acquired key players like Scottie Pippen, who would become Jordan's trusted sidekick. But even with the pieces starting to fall into place, the Bulls still struggled to make a serious playoff run. It was during these years that Jordan's leadership began to crystallize. He wasn't just a scorer, he was becoming a true captain. He was vocal in the locker room, demanding the best from his teammates, pushing them to work harder, and setting the standard for what it meant to be a part of the team. His drive to win was contagious, and the team slowly started to buy into his vision. By the end of the 1980s, Jordan's skills had reached another level. His scoring ability was unparalleled, and he had developed into one of the best all-around players in the league. But the challenge that lay ahead was clear: the Chicago Bulls were still a long way from being NBA champions. Jordan had the talent, but he needed more. He needed a team that could match his intensity, a team that could help him take that next step. The turning point came in 1989 when the Bulls hired Phil Jackson as head coach. Jackson brought a new philosophy to the team, one that focused on teamwork, balance, and unselfishness. Jackson's triangle offense was the perfect system for Jordan, as it allowed him to be both a scorer and a playmaker, while also giving his teammates the opportunity to shine. With Jackson's leadership and the maturation of players like Pippen, the Bulls became a legitimate contender. The 1990s would prove to be Jordan's time. With the right pieces around him, and the guidance of Phil Jackson, Jordan was ready to take the next step. The next few years would be filled with highs and lows, but through it all, one thing was clear: Michael Jordan was ready to do whatever it took to win. His quest for greatness, now focused on building a championship-caliber team, would propel the Bulls into the dynasty that defined an era. The obstacles were still there, but so was Jordan's unyielding drive to overcome them. The true test of his greatness was just beginning. By the time Michael Jordan became a household name, his rise had already been marked by both extraordinary personal accomplishments and relentless ambition. However, as his career in the NBA began to take off, there was one major obstacle standing in his way: the Detroit Pistons. The Pistons, led by Isiah Thomas and fueled by their aggressive, physical brand of basketball, had taken over the Eastern Conference, and they were the one team that seemed able to match, and in many cases, overpower, Jordan's Bulls. This would become one of the most intense and defining rivalries in NBA history. The rivalry between the Chicago Bulls and the Detroit Pistons was rooted in more than just competition on the court. It was built on contrasting styles, contrasting personalities, and a shared determination to come out on top. The Pistons' physical style of play, which came to be known as the Bad Boys, was the perfect counter to Jordan's finesse and athleticism. In a league that celebrated finesse, the Pistons embraced brute strength, and they were willing to do whatever it took to assert their dominance, even if it meant pushing the limits of sportsmanship. For Jordan, the Pistons were both a test and a torment. Year after year, the Bulls met the Pistons in the Eastern Conference Finals, and each time they were shut down. The Pistons, with their aggressive defense and physicality, seemed to have Jordan's number. They often frustrated him by playing hard, sometimes borderline dirty, defense, trying to wear him down with hard fouls and intimidation. Players like Bill Laimbeer, Rick Mahorn, and Dennis Rodman were willing to throw everything at Jordan to keep him from achieving his goal, a championship. The 1988 Eastern Conference Finals marked the first time Jordan truly clashed with the Pistons at the height of their dominance. The series was a test of endurance, as the Pistons physically and mentally wore down Jordan and the Bulls. The Pistons' defensive strategy, known as the Jordan Rules, was designed specifically to stop Michael Jordan. They forced him to give up the ball, knowing that if they could neutralize Jordan, the Bulls had little chance of winning. The strategy worked. Jordan, though outstanding in his individual play, struggled to break through the Pistons' physical defense. In this series, the Pistons triumphed in 7 games, and once again, Jordan's dreams of a title were dashed. It was clear that the Bulls had the talent, but they lacked the mental and physical toughness to overcome the reigning kings of the East. But Jordan was not a player to be defeated for long. The pain of losing to the Pistons, of having his dreams of a championship slip through his fingers year after year, sparked something inside of him. It wasn't just about basketball, it was about proving to himself and to the world that he could overcome the toughest challenge of his career. He would have to become more than just a scorer. To beat the Pistons, he needed to evolve. He needed to get stronger, smarter, and more physical. But above all, he had to change the way he approached the game. In the offseason following the 1988 defeat, Jordan dedicated himself to transforming his body. He worked tirelessly with trainers to build muscle and strength, understanding that he needed to withstand the punishment the Pistons were dishing out. He worked on his footwork and his ability to finish around the basket even when being fouled hard. But most importantly, Jordan worked on his mental toughness. He realized that, to beat the Pistons, he had to embrace their physicality, not just respond to it. The 1989 Eastern Conference Finals would serve as the ultimate proving ground for Jordan and the Bulls. With a new sense of purpose and a more physical approach to the game, Jordan was ready. This time, the Bulls were different. Scottie Pippen had blossomed into a true all-star, and the Bulls' bench had become more reliable. Jordan's strength and his team's collective growth made the Bulls an even more formidable opponent. The Pistons, however, were still the Pistons, tough, gritty, and relentless. This series would be no different, with both teams willing to fight for every inch of ground. Game 1 was a sign that this was going to be a series of drama and intensity. The Bulls lost a heartbreaker in overtime, and the Pistons once again seemed like the dominant team. But Jordan had become a different player. No longer intimidated, he began to attack with more ferocity than ever before. His scoring continued to be brilliant, but he now had the mental fortitude to withstand the Pistons' physical play. And in the end, it was Jordan's will to win that made the difference. The Bulls swept the Pistons 4-0, a stunning upset that was as much about mental toughness as it was about talent. Jordan had finally broken through the wall the Pistons had built around him, and it felt like the ultimate victory, not just in the series, but in his career. The Bulls' defeat of the Pistons wasn't just about one series, it was about the culmination of everything Jordan had learned over the years. The loss had motivated him to become more than just a great player. He had transformed himself into a true leader, one who had the strength and confidence to take down the league's most intimidating team. It wasn't just about his scoring ability anymore, it was about his ability to lead his team, to make them believe in themselves, and to rise to the occasion when it mattered most. But Jordan wasn't content to simply break through against the Pistons. He knew that a true legacy wasn't made by defeating one rival, it was made by achieving greatness time and time again. The victory over the Pistons marked a turning point, but it was just the beginning. The Chicago Bulls, led by Jordan, were now positioned to compete for a championship, but there was still a long road ahead. The Pistons were a formidable foe, but they weren't the only team standing in the Bulls' way. As Jordan and the Bulls marched into the 1991 NBA Finals against the Los Angeles Lakers, they were a changed team. No longer were they just a group of players trying to figure out how to win. They were a championship-caliber team, ready to prove that their defeat of the Pistons was no fluke. The Lakers, led by Magic Johnson, were a seasoned, talented team that had dominated the 1980s. But this was Jordan's time. His hunger for success, his evolution as a player, and his leadership had brought the Bulls to the brink of greatness. The 1991 Finals were a showcase for everything Jordan had learned and everything he had become. His performance was nothing short of spectacular. The Lakers, despite their experience, couldn't match the intensity and determination that Jordan brought to the court. The Bulls dominated the series, winning 4-1 and claiming their first-ever NBA championship. Jordan was named Finals MVP, and the championship was the validation of everything he had worked for, the culmination of years of hard work, sacrifice, and a fierce desire to be the best. The rivalry with the Pistons had pushed Jordan to new heights, but it was just one chapter in the larger story of his career. The championship victory in 1991 was the first of many, and the beginning of a dynasty that would change the NBA forever. What had started as a bitter rivalry between Jordan and the Pistons had evolved into a defining moment in his journey, a moment where he realized that nothing was impossible, and that no challenge, no matter how tough, could stop him from achieving greatness. The story of Jordan's rivalry with the Pistons was one of growth, leadership, and the unrelenting pursuit of victory. It was the beginning of Michael Jordan's legacy, a legacy that would endure for generations to come. By 1991, Michael Jordan was more than just a basketball player, he was a force of nature. After years of trying and failing to break through, after enduring painful defeats at the hands of teams like the Detroit Pistons, Jordan was finally on the cusp of achieving something bigger than himself. That year, with his Bulls teammates surrounding him, Jordan had the chance to make his first serious push for an NBA title. The playoffs had been a brutal test, but the Chicago Bulls were now a team that seemed poised for greatness. The road to the finals in 1991 had been a grueling one. The Bulls had encountered their usual playoff nemesis in the Eastern Conference, the Detroit Pistons. The Pistons, with their physical and aggressive bad boy style of play, had dominated the East for years, and once again, they were standing in the way of Jordan's quest for a championship. The previous seasons had been marked by frustration as Jordan, individually spectacular, had been unable to overcome the Pistons' defense, which was specifically designed to slow him down. The Pistons' brutal tactics frustrated Jordan, testing not just his skills but his patience and mental fortitude. Each loss to the Pistons only sharpened Jordan's desire to win, but it also brought a painful realization: the Bulls needed to be tougher as a team if they were ever going to overcome this obstacle. In the 1991 Eastern Conference Finals, the Bulls finally achieved what they had been unable to do for years: they swept the Pistons 4-0. Jordan's role in that victory was nothing short of heroic. It wasn't just about his scoring, though he was exceptional in that area, but it was about his leadership. For the first time, Jordan's mental toughness and ability to raise the level of play around him were fully realized. Scottie Pippen, who had always been an underrated part of the Bulls' success, emerged as a true second star, providing the Bulls with a defensive presence and a versatile offensive game. The Bulls, as a team, were finally showing the level of cohesion and toughness that had been missing in previous seasons. With the Pistons out of the way, the stage was set for the NBA Finals. The Los Angeles Lakers, led by Magic Johnson, were the defending champions and a team full of seasoned veterans. The Lakers were, in many ways, the perfect representation of the NBA's golden age. With players like Magic, Kareem Abdul-Jabbar, and James Worthy, they had the experience and pedigree to challenge any team. But as the finals began, it quickly became clear that the Bulls were a different team than the Lakers had ever seen before. Game 1 of the 1991 Finals took place at the Chicago Stadium, and Jordan came out swinging. The energy in the arena was palpable, with the city of Chicago holding its collective breath, hoping for a championship breakthrough. Jordan scored 36 points in Game 1, leading the Bulls to a 108-105 victory. But it wasn't just the points. Jordan's all-around play, including his ability to facilitate for others and play lockdown defense, was something the Lakers couldn't answer. It was clear that Jordan had grown beyond being just a scorer. He was now a complete player capable of leading the team in every facet of the game. Over the course of the finals, Jordan continued to show why he was the best player in the world. Game 2 was another showcase of his skill and leadership. He scored 29 points and dished out 13 assists in a 107-86 victory, further solidifying his place as the Finals MVP. Jordan's performance wasn't just a series of individual highlights, it was a masterclass in basketball, with him orchestrating the offense, playing tough defense, and hitting clutch shots when the team needed him most. By the time Game 3 rolled around, the Bulls had already taken a commanding 2-0 series lead, and the Lakers, despite being a championship-caliber team, were reeling. Magic Johnson, while still playing at a high level, was no longer the dominant force he had been in previous finals. The Bulls' defense, led by Jordan and Pippen, was shutting down the Lakers' offensive rhythm, and Chicago's athleticism was proving to be too much for the older Lakers squad. The Bulls had the edge, and it was becoming clear that the baton had been passed from Magic Johnson's Lakers to Michael Jordan's Bulls. In Game 3, Jordan's dominance reached new heights. He poured in 30 points, grabbed 10 rebounds, and made key plays down the stretch, guiding the Bulls to a 104-96 victory. But the moment that defined the series, and Jordan's legacy, came in Game 5. With the series tied 1-1, Game 5 was a pivotal turning point. It was in this game that Jordan, already leading the Bulls to an incredible playoff run, took his play to a level few could ever imagine. Despite being visibly sick and struggling with what was later revealed to be the flu, Jordan delivered one of the most memorable performances of his career. The game became known as the flu game, and it would go down as one of Jordan's most iconic performances. He scored 38 points, including the game-winning shot with less than 30 seconds remaining. The Bulls won 90-88, and Jordan's performance was proof that his greatness transcended everything. Even when he was at his lowest physically, Jordan's will to win could not be denied. It wasn't just about playing through the flu, it was about Jordan's ability to rise to the occasion and give everything he had for the team. His leadership, his passion, and his determination had carried the Bulls through one of the toughest challenges they had ever faced. With the Bulls leading the series 3-1, the championship was now within reach. The Lakers fought valiantly in Game 5, but the Bulls' chemistry, depth, and leadership from Jordan were too much. Chicago closed out the Lakers 108-105 to win the 1991 NBA championship, their first in franchise history. The victory was not only a testament to the hard work and sacrifice the Bulls had put in over the years, but it was a symbolic moment in Jordan's career. For the first time, he had led his team to the pinnacle of the sport. Jordan's performance in the finals earned him the Finals MVP award, and it was the culmination of years of hard work, sacrifice, and heartbreak. Jordan had not just carried the Bulls to victory, he had elevated them to championship status. His victory was also a victory for the city of Chicago, which had long been starved for a winner. It marked the beginning of a dynasty, one that would come to define the 1990s in the NBA. As Jordan held the Finals MVP trophy aloft, the significance of the moment was undeniable. This wasn't just about winning a title, it was about proving to the world that he was the greatest player of his generation. It was about fulfilling his promise to himself and to the fans in Chicago who had supported him through the highs and lows of his career. Jordan had faced his toughest opponents, overcome the odds, and proven that he could lead a team to the ultimate prize. For the Chicago Bulls, the 1991 championship was just the beginning. The dynasty had been born, and Michael Jordan was now firmly established as not just a basketball legend, but a global icon. The journey that had started with heartbreak and adversity was now one of undeniable triumph. It wasn't just about talent anymore, it was about leadership, perseverance, and a relentless pursuit of greatness. The legacy of Michael Jordan was officially cemented in NBA history, and the story of his incredible career had only just begun. The summer of 1993 marked one of the most shocking moments in sports history when Michael Jordan, at the peak of his powers and after leading the Chicago Bulls to 3 consecutive NBA championships, made the decision to retire from basketball. The news sent shockwaves through the basketball world. Jordan wasn't just the best player in the game, he was arguably the best player in the history of the sport, and to see him step away from the game so suddenly left fans, players, and analysts alike in disbelief. But behind the decision was more than just the pressure of winning championships, it was a deeply personal decision that would change the course of Jordan's life in ways no one could have predicted. In the months leading up to his retirement, Jordan had been dealing with a number of personal and emotional issues. The murder of his father, James Jordan Sr., in July 1993 had shaken him to his core. His father had been a constant presence in his life, serving as a mentor, confidant, and source of strength throughout his rise to stardom. James Jordan was more than just a father to Michael, he was his rock. The loss was devastating, and it sent Michael into a period of deep reflection. The tragedy highlighted just how much the pressure of being the best player in the world weighed on Jordan, and it made him question what truly mattered in life. After winning his third consecutive NBA championship with the Bulls in 1993, Jordan decided he needed a break from basketball. The relentless grind of the NBA season, the media scrutiny, and the never-ending pressure to win had worn him down. Basketball had been his life since he was a young boy, but at the age of 30, Jordan began to realize that there was more to life than basketball. The murder of his father, coupled with the mounting pressure, led him to seek a new path, a path that would take him away from the game that had made him famous. Jordan's first move after retiring from the NBA was to pursue a career in baseball, a sport that had always been dear to his father. His decision to leave basketball behind and play for the Birmingham Barons, a Double-A affiliate of the Chicago White Sox, was an unexpected twist. Many saw his decision as a way to honor his father's memory, but for others, it seemed like an ill-conceived, ill-timed diversion. Jordan's baseball career was a stark departure from the glitz and glamour of the NBA, but it was a fresh start, one where Jordan could step out of the spotlight and away from the suffocating expectations that had followed him for years. Jordan's time in baseball was filled with struggles and challenges. He had not played the sport seriously since high school, and the transition from basketball to baseball was not an easy one. His numbers with the Barons were far from impressive, and his performance at the plate was underwhelming, to say the least. Over the course of the 1994 minor league season, Jordan hit just .202 with 3 home runs and 51 RBIs. Baseball, with its intricate nuances and skill sets, was a far cry from the fast-paced, high-intensity world of basketball. But Jordan, true to form, approached baseball with the same unrelenting work ethic that had made him a superstar on the basketball court. He spent hours in the batting cages, working on his swing, and learning the game from scratch. The results were not immediate, but the experience of learning a new sport allowed Jordan to focus on something other than basketball. It provided him with a sense of peace and purpose that was lacking in his life after his father's death. Despite the challenges, Jordan's time in baseball helped him grow as a person. Away from the constant media attention and the intense scrutiny of the NBA, he was able to reflect on his life, his career, and the direction he wanted to take moving forward. Baseball gave him a sense of normalcy and allowed him to reconnect with the simplicity of the game, away from the pressures of being Michael Jordan, the global icon. His decision to play baseball was as much about finding peace as it was about honoring his father's legacy. However, as the 1994 baseball season progressed, Jordan began to realize that his heart was still in basketball. His love for the game had never truly waned, it had simply been overshadowed by the emotional toll of his father's death and the pressures of being at the top of his game. By March 1995, after a year away from basketball, Jordan made the decision to return to the NBA. His announcement, delivered in a simple statement, sent ripples through the basketball world: "I'm back." The return was nothing short of dramatic. After spending much of the 1994 to 1995 NBA season away from the game, Jordan had to find his rhythm again. He rejoined the Chicago Bulls, and his presence was immediately felt on the court. However, there were challenges. Jordan's body wasn't in the same condition it had been when he left. He had been away from the game for a full season and was now attempting to reintegrate himself into a league that had continued to evolve during his absence. Despite his time away, his competitive fire burned just as brightly as ever. When Jordan returned to the Bulls, he chose to wear the number 45, a number that symbolized a fresh start for him, both in terms of his basketball career and his life. His return was met with a mix of excitement and skepticism. Could he still be the same Michael Jordan that had dominated the NBA? Or had the time away dulled his skills? The early games after his return were a mix of highlights and struggles. Jordan wasn't immediately the unstoppable force he had once been, but the signs were there. His basketball IQ and leadership were as sharp as ever, and his competitive drive was unmatched. The Chicago Bulls, led by Jordan, made it to the playoffs, but the team had not yet regained the dominance they had experienced in the years prior to his retirement. The rust was evident, and the team, though talented, was not quite clicking. In the 1995 Eastern Conference semifinals, the Bulls faced the Orlando Magic. It was a challenging series, and Jordan struggled to find his rhythm against the Magic's young and talented squad, which included Shaquille O'Neal and Penny Hardaway. Despite Jordan's best efforts, the Bulls were ousted by the Magic, marking one of the rare playoff defeats in his career. The loss was disappointing, but it was also a turning point. Jordan had regained his passion for the game, and now, with the sting of this defeat, he was more determined than ever to reclaim his throne at the top of the NBA. Jordan's return, though marked by setbacks, was only the beginning of his journey back to greatness. The 1995-1996 NBA season saw the Bulls, with Jordan fully back in form, return to championship contention. This time, however, they weren't just a team with one star player, they were a complete team, with players like Scottie Pippen, Tony Kukoc, and Steve Kerr contributing at every level. Jordan had not only returned to his former self, but had become an even more complete player, willing to trust his teammates and share the spotlight when necessary. The Bulls, powered by Jordan's leadership, went on to win the 1996 NBA championship, proving that his return was more than just a comeback. It was the beginning of a new chapter in his legendary career. In the years that followed, Jordan would lead the Bulls to 2 more championships, solidifying his legacy as one of the greatest players to ever play the game. But it was in the summer of 1993, when he made the decision to walk away from basketball, that he began a journey of personal growth that would ultimately make his return even more meaningful. His time away from the game wasn't just a break from the sport, it was an opportunity for him to rediscover his love for basketball and to confront the personal challenges that had shaped his career. And when Jordan returned, he was not just a great player again, he was a more complete, more mature leader who would go on to shape the future of the NBA. His story of resilience, reinvention, and redemption continues to inspire athletes and fans alike. Michael Jordan's sudden retirement in 1993 shocked the basketball world. After leading the Chicago Bulls to 3 consecutive NBA championships, Jordan, at the height of his powers, decided to step away from the game. The loss of his father and the immense pressure of being the best player in the world weighed heavily on him. For a time, Jordan sought solace in baseball, his father's beloved sport, by signing with the Chicago White Sox's minor league affiliate, the Birmingham Barons. However, while baseball provided a temporary escape, it was clear to Jordan that his true passion was basketball. After a year away, Jordan decided to return to the NBA in March 1995, sending waves through the sport. The world was waiting to see if he could pick up where he left off, or if his time away had dulled his brilliance. Jordan's return to the NBA wasn't just about stepping back onto the court, it was about proving to the world, and to himself, that he was still the best. But things were different now. The league had continued to evolve in his absence, and the Chicago Bulls, though still competitive, were not quite the juggernaut they had been in the early 90s. The team had been led by Scottie Pippen, who had emerged as a star in Jordan's absence, but the dynamics had shifted. The Bulls were still good, but they weren't the dominant force they had been when Jordan was leading them to 3 championships. Jordan's return, though marked by excitement and anticipation, was not without challenges. For one, he wasn't returning to his old self immediately. In fact, Jordan had to knock off some rust. His body wasn't in the same shape it had been before, and he wasn't playing in mid-season form. However, there was something undeniably Jordan about his presence. His mere presence on the floor elevated the play of his teammates. His ability to make those around him better was just as apparent as it had ever been. Jordan brought an intensity that no one else could replicate, and even when he wasn't at his peak physical condition, his basketball IQ and leadership shone through. In his first game back with the Bulls, Jordan wore the number 45, which had personal significance to him. It represented a fresh start, a new chapter. His return was met with a standing ovation at the United Center, and while Jordan's performance in that game was a reminder of the long layoff, it was clear that he still had it. He scored 19 points in a loss to the Indiana Pacers, showing flashes of his old self but not yet the player he once was. Jordan's shooting was off, and the rhythm wasn't fully there, but the fire in his eyes was unmistakable. As the weeks passed, Jordan found his groove. His scoring, defense, and overall impact on the game began to steadily return. Still, there was one thing on his mind: the NBA championship. It wasn't enough for Jordan to just play again; he had unfinished business. Despite not being at his absolute peak, Jordan's leadership skills and mental toughness made the Bulls a dangerous team once again. The regular season that followed was marked by a growing sense of anticipation, both within the Bulls organization and throughout the NBA. Could Jordan's return catapult the Bulls back to the top? And would his team be able to rise to the occasion alongside him? The 1995 playoffs were Jordan's true test. The Bulls had faced stiff competition throughout the season, but now the stakes were higher. Their first playoff opponent was the Charlotte Hornets. In the first round, the Bulls emerged victorious, sweeping the Hornets 3-0. Jordan's play was a major factor in the sweep, but it was clear that the team still needed to find its full rhythm. Jordan was playing well, but he was still shaking off the rust. His scoring was back to its usual level, but some of his timing and the cohesion with his teammates needed adjustment. In the Eastern Conference semifinals, the Bulls faced off against the Orlando Magic. The Magic, led by Shaquille O'Neal and Penny Hardaway, were a formidable team. The challenge now wasn't just about physicality; it was about adapting to a younger, hungry team that was looking to make its mark. The Magic had speed, athleticism, and the confidence of a team that had grown accustomed to being a serious contender. They had a deep roster, and it was clear they weren't going to be intimidated by Jordan or the Bulls' championship pedigree. As the series unfolded, it became apparent that the Magic, despite their youth, were not backing down. The Bulls found themselves in a tough spot as the series progressed, facing a Magic team that was taking full advantage of Jordan's slight rust and the Bulls' lack of playoff cohesion. Jordan, despite his return, was not the same player he had been before his retirement. The Magic were physical, fast, and relentless, and they exploited the weaknesses in the Bulls' game. It was a tough series, and for the first time in his career, Jordan's team faced elimination in the postseason. In a stunning turn of events, the Bulls were eliminated by the Magic in a 4-2 series defeat. It was a crushing blow to Jordan and the Bulls. They had hoped that Jordan's return would mean an immediate return to dominance, but they found themselves falling short of expectations. For Jordan, the loss to the Magic was a reality check. He hadn't returned to the form that had made him an unstoppable force in the early 90s. The loss wasn't just a setback; it was a wake-up call for both Jordan and the Bulls. They weren't ready, and Jordan wasn't fully back yet. But Jordan wasn't one to sit back and accept defeat. He was determined to come back stronger than ever. That loss to the Magic wasn't the end of his journey; it was just the beginning of his true comeback story. He spent the offseason working relentlessly on his game, improving his conditioning, and refining his skills. His mental game was stronger than ever, and he understood that to reclaim the NBA championship, he would have to adapt once again. The work Jordan put in during the summer of 1995 would set the stage for one of the most dominant seasons in NBA history. When the 1995-1996 season began, the Bulls were a completely different team. Jordan, now in peak form, had reintegrated himself into the team's system, but more importantly, the entire team had grown. Scottie Pippen had emerged as a legitimate star, and the Bulls had added key pieces like Ron Harper, Steve Kerr, and Tony Kukoc, giving them depth and versatility. The team was clicking in ways it hadn't in the previous years, and Jordan was once again the centerpiece. His leadership and ability to elevate the play of everyone around him became even more apparent. The Bulls finished the 1995-96 regular season with a remarkable 72-10 record, the best in NBA history at the time. Jordan's return had not just revitalized the team, it had turned them into an unstoppable force. His scoring, defense, and all-around leadership were as strong as ever, and the team followed his example, playing with a renewed sense of purpose. The Bulls made it to the 1996 NBA Finals, where they faced the Seattle Supersonics. The finals were a dominating display by Jordan and the Bulls, who took the series 4-2. Jordan was named Finals MVP for his outstanding performance, completing one of the most impressive comebacks in sports history. The 1995-1996 season was Jordan's ultimate redemption. His decision to return to the NBA, after all the challenges and obstacles, had led to a dominant season and another championship for the Chicago Bulls. Jordan's leadership, both on and off the court, had brought the team back to the top, and his personal growth through his time away from basketball made this victory even sweeter. His ability to overcome the loss to the Magic, regain his fitness, and push the Bulls back to the championship level was a testament to his relentless drive and competitive spirit. This season was not just a reminder of Jordan's greatness, it solidified his place in history as one of the greatest players to ever play the game. And it was clear, Michael Jordan was back, and he was still the king. The final chapter of Michael Jordan's career is often described as a storybook ending. His time on the basketball court had been filled with unbelievable highs, dramatic moments, and legendary performances that would shape the game for generations to come. But it was also a journey defined by challenges, setbacks, and personal growth. Jordan's decision to retire for the second time in 1999, after 6 NBA championships, was the final act of his remarkable career. But even in retirement, his influence on the sport and the culture continued to endure. Michael Jordan wasn't just a basketball player, he was an icon whose impact transcended the game. Jordan's career had come full circle. From being cut from his high school varsity team to winning 6 NBA championships with the Chicago Bulls, Jordan had proven time and again that he was a player who could overcome any obstacle. His relentless work ethic, his competitive fire, and his leadership on and off the court had elevated him to the status of the greatest basketball player of all time. His ability to dominate on the court, combined with his presence and charisma, had made him a global figure, transcending sports to become one of the most recognizable athletes in the world. But as he prepared to step away from the game, there was no question that he had achieved everything a player could aspire to. The 1998 NBA Finals, where Jordan and the Bulls faced the Utah Jazz, would become a defining moment in his legacy. By this point, Jordan had already won 5 championships, and his place in history was secure. But he wasn't just playing for the trophy anymore, he was playing for his legacy. He was playing to prove that even in his mid-30s, with a career that had seen so much success, he was still the best player in the world. The finals were intense. The Jazz, led by Karl Malone and John Stockton, were an excellent team, but they were no match for the mental and physical strength of Jordan. Game 6 of the 1998 Finals is forever etched in basketball lore. With the score tied in the final moments of the game, Jordan took the ball at the top of the key, dribbled toward the basket, and hit a clutch jump shot over Utah's Bryon Russell with just 5.2 seconds left. It was his 6th NBA championship and his 6th Finals MVP, but more importantly, it was a symbolic moment. Jordan had done it again. He had carried his team to victory, overcoming the odds and securing his place as a player who would be remembered for all time. The final shot in the 1998 Finals encapsulated everything that made Michael Jordan the greatest. It wasn't just the skill or the perfect execution, it was the ability to perform in the clutch, to take over when it mattered most, and to always be the player his team could rely on in moments of adversity. The shot wasn't just a testament to Jordan's ability, it was a symbol of his entire career, a career that had been defined by one goal: to win, no matter the cost. When Jordan retired for the second time after the 1998 season, it marked the end of an era. The Chicago Bulls, once a dynasty built around Jordan's unmatched leadership and skill, began to enter a new chapter. Jordan's departure left a massive void, not just for the Bulls, but for the entire NBA. He had not only redefined what it meant to be an elite basketball player, but he had elevated the entire sport, helping to grow the NBA into a global powerhouse. His air of invincibility, his competitive nature, and his drive to succeed had inspired countless athletes and fans around the world. But Jordan's legacy wasn't just about the trophies and accolades. It was about the way he changed the game, the way he made everyone believe that greatness was within their reach if they worked hard enough and fought for it. He wasn't just a basketball player, he was an embodiment of the pursuit of excellence. His ability to elevate those around him, to make his teammates better, and to lift an entire franchise to heights it had never seen before was what set him apart from anyone who had come before him. Jordan's influence continued well beyond his time on the court. His return to the NBA in 2001, when he played for the Washington Wizards, was met with the same excitement that had greeted his original debut with the Bulls. Though Jordan was no longer the player he once was, his mere presence in the league was a testament to his legacy. He was now an ambassador for the game, a role he would continue to hold even after his retirement from playing. His influence on the NBA, particularly in terms of globalizing the sport, was undeniable. The NBA's popularity exploded in the 1990s, and Jordan was a central figure in that success. The NBA went from a popular American pastime to a global phenomenon, with Jordan as the face of the league. Off the court, Jordan's impact was equally significant. His Air Jordan line of sneakers revolutionized the footwear industry and became a cultural phenomenon in its own right. The shoes, designed by Nike, were more than just athletic gear. They became a status symbol, a reflection of Jordan's dominance and influence in the world of sports and fashion. His success with Nike was just one example of how Jordan leveraged his athleticism and fame to become a business mogul. Jordan's endorsements, his savvy marketing, and his ability to connect with fans made him not just an athlete, but a businessman who helped redefine the relationship between athletes and corporate partnerships. But beyond the business world and the courts, Jordan's legacy was also about the impact he had on the lives of others. His philanthropic work, his efforts to make a difference in the community, and his dedication to inspiring the next generation of athletes were all part of the legacy he built. Jordan had always believed in pushing himself and others to be their best, and that mentality extended beyond the basketball court. He inspired millions to dream bigger, to push harder, and to never settle for anything less than their best. Even as the NBA moved into a new era with stars like Kobe Bryant and LeBron James, Michael Jordan's influence was never far from the forefront. The players who followed him in the 2000s and beyond often cited him as their greatest inspiration, modeling their work ethic and mindset after the standards he had set. LeBron James, in particular, was vocal about how much Jordan meant to him, crediting Jordan for inspiring him to strive for greatness both on and off the court. Kobe Bryant, too, molded his game after Jordan's, learning from him not just as a player but as a competitor. For these players, Jordan was the standard, a symbol of what could be achieved if they worked tirelessly, competed relentlessly, and always aimed for the top. When Michael Jordan finally retired for good in 2003, it was clear that his impact would live on far beyond his years in the league. His story was one of redemption, resilience, and the relentless pursuit of greatness. His legacy wasn't just about what he accomplished on the court, it was about the way he changed the way the game was played, the way athletes approached their craft, and the way fans experienced the sport. Michael Jordan had not just been the greatest basketball player of his time, he had been the catalyst for an era of transformation in sports, culture, and business. The finality of Jordan's career was not a closing of the chapter, it was a reminder that greatness, once achieved, transcends time. Michael Jordan didn't just leave behind a legacy of championships and awards. He left behind a blueprint for success, a roadmap that future generations of athletes would follow. He proved that with hard work, determination, and the willingness to overcome any obstacle, anyone could reach the pinnacle of their sport. And that, more than any trophy or accolade, was Michael Jordan's true legacy.